trouble, and we don't look for trouble, just ask around. But when outside faces from foreign places talk about taking over, we ain't backing down. No, we ain't giving up no mountain, and we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belong to we. Not the one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one chorus, not a blade of grass. This land is our land now, we're gonna make it somehow. We will bend like a bow, but never break. Our fathers came here, and they lived and died here, and we are moving from here, make no mistake. No, we ain't giving up no mountain, and we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belong to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one chorus, not a blade of grass. We love the open country of the Rupanuni and the Essequibo, daytime or night. Though we criticize it, this is our home, we love it, and we mean to keep it. We have that right. No, we ain't giving up no mountain, and we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belong to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one chorus, not a blade of grass, not one golden apple, not one jamun, not a drop of water from the farmer room, not one sherriga.
Welcome to another edition of Voice of the Diaspora. Them black man getting free food every day. They're getting paid to fight, said Dr. Indian with a PhD to his name. I told him never to talk like that in my presence. Again, PhD in ignorance. But it shows the mindset of PPP supporters, Indo-Guyanese, after decades of PPP brainwashing in rum shops, mandirs, and masjids. I'm saying again, I don't think Afro-Guyanese should sacrifice their lives for PPP supporters. Those are the words of political activist Malcolm Harripaul. He joins me now, along with co-host J.R. Crawford. Malcolm Harripaul, political activist, welcome to Voice of the Diaspora. J.R. Crawford, co-host, welcome to Voice of the Diaspora.
Good night, everyone. Malcolm, welcome.
Good night. Good night, JR. Good night, Norman. Good night to all viewers out there. And thank you for having me on the program. I really appreciate it.
And it is indeed a pleasure having you on the program. So many people are already tuning in across the diaspora, and of course at home. Comments are coming in already, and we haven't even really started. Let us begin, Malcolm, before we get into the meat of the program. Let us begin by having you introducing yourself and telling our viewers a little bit about you before we rumble.
Well, I'm 63 years old, and I've served the country of Guyana all my life. At age 16, I started teaching. I was a school teacher. Then I was an army officer. Then I was a civil servant. I served my country. I paid my taxes. I served my country, and I was always involved in political struggle. In the 1970s, I was a PPP PY activist, a teenager at the said time. During the decade of the 80s, I was in the GDF, so I was not a political activist. But when I left the GDF in mid 89, I again became a PPP activist until I parted ways with the PPP. Problem is, I got into problems with the PP when the PP got into power in October 1992. And so by 1995, we parted ways. And then I had migrated to the States. I spent 2 years working there. And I returned to live in Guyana in 2015 after President Granger assumed office. And I've been living in Guyana since 2015, still very active in politics. I over the years, over the past 3 decades or so, I've written hundreds of letters in the newspapers, firstly under the name M.H. Paul, and later on, when my identity was exposed by 1993, I started using my real name, Malcolm Harripaul. And over those years, I've always written about the need to balance the security forces in Guyana, balance the army, and balance the police. Now, when the PPP was in opposition in the 1960s and the 1970s and 1980s, Dr. Jagan and the PP would always say that there was discrimination in recruiting members to the GDF and the police, and they were always calling for the army and the police to be ethnically balanced. However, after Dr. Jagan assumed presidency in October 92, all that went through the window. They were no longer interested in balancing the army and police. In fact, one time, Mr. Janet Jagan accosted me in Freedom House. This is like in early 1993. And she berate me for calling for the balancing of the army and police. She said that I wanted the PP to take away jobs from African Guyanese. Mind you, at the same time, they were busy in dismantling the bauxite industry, putting thousands of bauxite workers out of work, and also dismantling the diplomatic corps that Mr. Forrest Barnum had built to help in our what was called defense diplomacy. They went ahead and fired hundreds of Afro-Guyanese from those organizations. And since then, the PPP has never made an effort to balance its security forces. In fact, it went from actively, during the opposition days, they would actively discourage Indo-Guyanese from enlisting in the GDF. In those days, in the 70s and 80s, they would refer to the GDF as Guyana dog food. And those of us Indians who joined the army were deemed to be PNC, you know. And in those days, in the 70s and 80s, at least 15% of the GDF, 50% were Indo-Guyanese. In fact, in the early 80s, mid 80s, 80% of the training staff at the Kama Battle School were Indo-Guyanese. 50% of the training staff were Afro-Guyanese at the Takama Battle School. And a few years after the PP came to power, you could hardly find Indo-Guyanese in the GDF. I remember I went to the officers' mess one time, like 1995, 96, and there's hardly any GDF of Indian descent here. And the Indo-Guyanese, like when President Granger was there, and I had opportunity to visit and speak with Hindus at their events, and I always call on them to join the army and police. They used to be very annoyed with me, and people tell me when I go, don't say anything about army and police, because they don't want their children, they don't want the sons to join the GDF, and that was the situation. And to add further to that, shortly after they got into power, they started to say things like Indians were not suitable for military service, that we couldn't wake up early morning, we not able to the long run, we not able to the food, they're going to force you to eat beef, and black man got holler up on you, and things like that. That's what they were telling people, you know. And they were saying these things at the rum shop, I know it for a fact, and saying it at other venues also. So you have a situation over the past years where Indians just will not join the army. When Mr. Granger was president, I know for a fact that the GDF went out to Indian areas like Polar, like Windsor Forest, Lenora, to do recruiting and got not a single recruit. Mind you, in the 1970s and 80s, there were many Indian soldiers out from Canals Polar, number one and two. There were quite a few soldiers from Windsor Forest. In fact, the GDF tailor was a guy named Sadhu, and he was from Windsor Forest. And we had soldiers throughout the West Coast, through Lenore, through Iflot. We had a lot of soldiers from the island of Leguan. A lot. At one time, for example, I saw when I got commissioned in February 1982, I was posted to the artillery battalion. And when I got here, I was pleasantly surprised to find that there were like 100 soldiers from Leguan, the island where I grew up. You know, and today we can't get Indians to enlist in the GDF because of what the PP has been telling them over the years, actively discouraging from joining. And what I've also written over the years is that the reason why the PPP is not interested and does not want the army and police balance, do not want Indians to have military service, that they at election times rely on election fear mongering, racial fear mongering. And that's how they get Indians to go out and vote for them en masse, en bloc, because they play the risk. They say, well, the black man got the guns, and if you're not in office, I come for you. Things like that. They say that at bottom house meetings and so on. All right, and that is the real reason why they don't want Indians in the army or police. Because once you have a large number of Indians in the army and the police, over the years, the culture will change. They start to think differently. And after a while, you can't go tell them about black man at election times because they say, what? We train with them, we serve with them. We're not afraid of black people anymore. And maybe 15, 20% of Indians stop voting race and they start voting on issues. And the people will not be able to win elections. And that's why they do not want that little cultural change in East Indians in Guyana. And that's why I've kept the status quo as it is.
Malcolm,
What has annoyed me also is that they will continue to insult. Go ahead.
go ahead, Joe. You go ahead. Finish. Yeah.
Yeah. Over the years, you'll find them always saying insulting things about the GDF, especially. And those things annoy me more so because I served the GDF. And like the guy who last week talked about man getting free food and free house and things like that, and free salary, and they're doing nothing whole year, and they should go and fight. That really upset me because he was slandering, he was insulting the men who are serving in uniform today, the men who are relying on to protect us at borders. Not only the current crop of soldiers, but all the thousands who came before them. They insulting the men of my platoon, the men of the company I commanded. They insulting the soldiers that I trained in the 1980s at Takamo. And that is why I'm very annoyed with what the guy said, and that prompted me to make that post. Because I could understand if a fish vendor or labor say things like that, but not a man with a PhD. All right, not a supposedly educated person.
Not a supposedly educated person. Malcolm Harripaul here, political activist. Malcolm, you have been very vocal. I know that you have been involved in politics, as you said, for decades. You've been a part of the People's Progressive Party. Our viewers will draw the understanding that you're a very objective person, not a racist bone in you or anything. And so you've been very vocal on your Facebook page recently, and that caused you to be arrested a few days ago. Take us through what happened, what transpired.
Well, on that day, that Thursday morning, I had to go into Georgetown to do a couple of things. And I don't travel over the Demerara Harbor Bridge unnecessarily because of traffic chaos there and wasting hours. So I would walk to Venus standing cross to the boat, walk to where I was going, walk around to where I was going, and that's what I did that day. When I got home around midday, I would have covered like 5 miles. Shortly after home, there were several vehicles of policemen that came to my home. And maybe 20 to 30 policemen showed up at my home. And the officer in charge said he came to arrest me. for inciting racial hostility. I said, okay. So he arrested me and he took me to CID headquarters in Georgetown. When I got there and they were interviewing me on camera, they were saying they quoted a certain section of the cybercrime act or whatever it is. And but what it meant to me is that they were saying I tried to overthrow the government, that I was trying to change the government by unlawful authority and things like that. I said, hey, you're talking about treason. You're trying to make me a permanent political prison because what you're talking is treason. And I'm like, how can I overthrow a government on Facebook comments I made? All right. So they ended the interview, and late in the afternoon they took me to Brickdam or put me in the lockups there. Now I come back to the
They
condition of
argue
the
in
lockups.
shackles. They argue in shackles and handcuffs and so on. And handcuff.
No, not in taking me to lockup. But the next day, I was returned to CID headquarters, and now they changed the act under which they're going to charge me, and they eventually charged me for inciting racial hostility and something like that. That's what I was charged for. So they apparently, they made a late decision to institute the charges. And then I saw them making efforts to, I saw them early preparing a case jacket and so on. That was like 12:30. Meanwhile, they had seized my phone. Since Thursday, they had seized my phone. I did not have access to my phone. I could not make any calls and so on. I pleaded them to let me make a call to someone who could come and bail me in case I'm granted bail. And they declined to do so. And so they hardly took me to court. And that's where I was placed in handcuffs and foot cuffs. All right. I'll say this about the handcuffs and foot cuffs. I'm 63 years old. I never have been charged with any criminal offense before. I had a short pants on. I have vitiligo marks around my skin, especially around my ankle. And when they placed that cuff around my ankle, the serrated edges lacerated my ankles. My ankles are partially bleeding. Then they ushered me to a door. The guy opened the door and he said, go upstairs. And then he closed the door. When he closed the door, the place was completely dark. I could not see. So I tried going up the steps, and like after 5 steps, I fell down because I never walked with foot cuffs on before. I fell backwards. Fortunately, I did not hit my head. I did not injure my back and so. Then I managed to half crawl up the stairs, only to find there are 2 doors, one door straight ahead and one door to my left. So I'm standing there for a while now. There's partial lights. Daylight from outside. I'm standing there for a good 5-7 minutes. Then they opened the side door, and that door led into the court. But there's no proper step. If you don't know what to do with the foot cuffs on, you'll fall again. But the policeman held my hand and helped me into the courtroom. All right. So that in itself is duress by itself. To me, that to my mind is torture in itself. Going back to the lockups of Brickdam, you would not believe
Before
that
you get to the
place was
lockups,
built.
are you saying, for the sake of the viewers, are you saying that they deny you, they refuse to give you one phone call while you were arrested?
No, they made a call, but they made a call to my lawyer, Mr. Aubrey Norton. Upon hearing since on the Thursday that I was arrested, I arranged for a lawyer. I think Todd and Associates, but Mr. Cox came along, and he visited me at CID headquarters the Thursday. And when they were taking me to court, I asked them to call a lawyer, and we did not get the lawyer. The lawyer did not answer the phone or something like that. Fortunately, when we got to the court and I'm waiting to be taken upstairs, a policeman asked me, this is a policeman who works at the court, he asked me if I have a lawyer. I said, yes, I'm Mr. Cox, but he doesn't know I'm here. So the policeman was kind enough to use his phone. He said he had Mr. Cox's number, and he called Mr. Cox, and Mr. Cox showed up like 10 minutes later. So I was represented by a lawyer during the court proceedings.
Okay, go ahead and tell us about the conditions of the lockup. And you did say to me in our earlier conversation that the police treated you well, even though you were wrongfully arrested. In your opinion, the police treated you well.
Well, I would say yes in the circumstances because they have no they, they have no say in what's going on. They're obeying instructions blindly, especially the people at CID. Whatever orders are passed on, whether it's lawful order or not, they obey it blindly. But I have to say that the Army policemen were very nice to me, very professional to me, and so on. I don't have any complaints with them. But it's just what they have. So I break down the lockup, which was built 3 years ago and supposed to be new brand. You would not believe the condition of that place. It is absolutely filthy inside. There's no mattress, like all just bits and pieces of mattresses, all dirty. The whole place is very dirty. That in itself is torture and certainly duress. So if you want to break down someone, you put them in there for a night or two, and start to get them to say whatever they want to say whenever you question them again. You understand?
Wow.
You have to see to believe it. And like I posted on Facebook, a farmer, the place is so filthy. A farmer will not allow pigs in that place for fear of the pigs contracting disease and dying out. That's how it is. That's how it is in that place.
So the conditions are inhumane. Let me bring my co-host in, JR. JR, what would you like to say to Malcolm Harripaul, and what questions would you like to ask him?
What I would want to know, when Malcolm, when you were at the CID headquarters, were you on the first time? Were you in the company of your attorney when they were questioning you on the very first attempt, or
No,
you were being questioned without
no.
representation?
Hello?
Yes, Malcolm. Are you hearing
Hello?
me?
We hearing you clearly, Malcolm. Go ahead.
I Yeah, but I'm barely hearing JR. I don't know what happened there.
No, what I was asking you, when you were questioned at the CID headquarters on the first occasion, were you accompanied by your attorney or by yourself?
I'm not hearing
He's,
JR.
he's, he's asking, when you were first questioned at Brickdam by the police, were you accompanied by your attorney, or you were without representation?
Oh boy.
Settle in there.
Are
Can
you
you?
hearing me, Norman?
Yeah, I'm hearing you clearly. Can you hear me?
I'm hearing you better now, yes.
Yeah, what JR is asking is if when you were first arrested and questioned by the police at Brickdam, were you in company with your attorney, or you were unrepresented the
No, there's
first
no
time?
one there. No one was there, just me alone, because the turn came till around 4 o'clock time.
Did you get that,
Well,
JR?
you know, Malcolm, you're supposed to have an attorney present when when you're being questioned, right? As per the laws,
Yes.
right? So that from Jump Street, you know that things were not going according lawfully there. So at that time, you shouldn't have had any answers for any questions unless an attorney is present.
Did you hear him,
I think
Malcolm?
Okay.
you should have known that. Anyway, Malcolm,
Uh,
after being in court and you were granted bail on the very first hearing, right?
yes.
Upon leaving, did you show the judge the condition of your ankles as you were telling us just now, being that you were in
No, no,
shorts
no, I did not.
and the,
I did not. It was I pointed to the when I came down the court, waiting to be bailed. I pointed to the police and they removed the foot cuffs.
right? But you should have mentioned that to honorable judge. So those documentation would have been noted in the court proceedings to be used
Okay.
later. Because if you're only going to put shackles on someone to create injury, it's not. We are not in those times anymore. Our laws does not permit such a thing. You're not railing against anybody. You're not resisting any arrest. And in the future,
Yeah, that's correct.
to an investigator, especially matters of an attorney. There's nothing. What bothers me a little bit with your situation, because your situation is unique, and you said in your introduction, you're a very loyal PPP person from back in the 70s. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience in the oversight body at Customs?
Well,
Malcolm, you can
well,
now
first
move.
of
You can
all,
now move back and look at the screen. You can now move back. Yes, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
okay. Well, when the PP got into power in October 92, Dr. Jagan told me that he could not give me any official appointment because the then Chief of Staff, Major General Joe Singh, and the Commissioner of Police, Larry Lewis, had objected that of me getting any position in national defense or national security and so on. He told me that. Okay, at this time, I was employed with Gaffson's Industries in any case. But it so happens that in around mid 1993, Mr. Gafoor had a meeting with then Minister of Finance, Asghar Ali. And Mr. Ali was telling Mr. Gafoor what's going on at customs with them losing revenue, people cheating the revenue, etc., etc. He formed a fraud squad, but the guys are not doing the jobs and so on. So Mr. Gafoor offered to second me, and Mr. Ali accepted, and that's how I ended up with that fraud squad in
I think we're getting a bit of hiccups there with
the fraud squad
the
there.
connection.
During my stay there, I had tremendous problems with people, business people, and also with some a particular judge and some lawyers. And some of those business people, now you cannot touch them. They're untouchable. You can't try to investigate them or have killed. All right. And a particular judge had lobbied Dr. Jacob and a few days later to have me removed from this fraud squad. He lobbied on behalf of a sole businessman. All right. That's how things were since then. I had cases of Mrs. Janet Jagan, twice calling me to intercede on behalf of a guy named Dr. Julian Hanuman, and I can talk about this because it was reported in newspapers. She said I was harassing him and he was a PP financier, blah blah blah. Turns out, a few years after, like 3-4 years after, same Hanuman was sued by his creditors from London. They came to Ghana and sued him because the containers of goods he took were never paid for. And his defense, believe it or not, and this was published in the newspapers at the time, his defense was that the creditors gave him false documents to customs of revenue, and therefore the transaction was null and void. Therefore, he does not have to repay any money and things like that. That was his defense. And they upheld his defense. Shortly after he immigrated for Ghana, he went to Trinidad or something. What I'm telling you there was in the Starbuck News. Not sure if the Kaito News was up and running by then, but it certainly was in the Starbuck News at the time. All right. And I mean, I've had very, very bad experiences at customs there. I've had people open fire on me, people fire shots at me. People tried calling my home. I was living at Crunk Street, Queenstown, threatening my wife and children with arson, with murder, with rape, and things. People sending dogs to stake out Stella Maris School, where my big daughter was attending at the time. And calling in Ministry of Finance and saying they kidnapped my daughter and things like that. That's what I had to endure in those days, being in the fraud squad. And this was being done by PPP supporters. Okay.
Malcolm, were you, since being arrested, were you contacted by any international or external organization
You there, Norman?
that?
Yeah, yeah, I'm here. Can you hear JR?
No, what I was asking, Malcolm, since he was arrested, did anybody from the International Human Rights Association made contact with you?
Can you hear JR, Malcolm? Or are you still not hearing him? Uh, we've just lost him. I think we're getting some connection problem from Malcolm's end.
Or
He can't hear
maybe
you, JR, but
you will have to repeat the questions to him.
yeah, I did try. He's cut off now, but go ahead and give your view. I presume he will
No,
call in
well,
back
I was
shortly.
wondering, Norman, if the international human rights organizations, various bodies, have been in contact with people that are being, you know, oppressed in the sense of they cannot express their feelings about our current political state in this country.
Mm.
Our constitution guarantees us freedom of speech. No one has, made. They're saying that the government is not allowing free speech, which is a breach of the constitution. And I, the courts should be the caretaker of our laws, and we're not seeing that freedom is or that umbrella is being extended to our citizens in a timely manner.
So we got Malcolm back. I think what JR is asking is if you were contacted by any international human rights body, based on the violations, that you would have undergone, encountered. I honestly believe that in cases such as the intervention of human rights bodies and so on, they have to be contacted, and case has to be put before them. I don't think they're there to scout and see whatever's happening. But Malcolm, JR was asking you if you were contacted by any international human rights body.
No, I was not contacted by anyone. I mean, I was only released on Friday. Today is Sunday. I don't know if anyone will contact me on Monday, but Monday tomorrow, or the conditions of my bail is that I have to report to the police on Mondays at Renoop there. And on the 11th of December, I have
Right.
to go to court for the second court appearance.
Well, yeah, that reporting on a weekly basis until you get a court hearing, that's per norm. But what is disturbing to us as Guyanese, when you look at the post that you've made, it has nothing to do with overthrowing the government or anything of a treasonous act. All you were saying in your post and being bluntly honest was telling people of Africa going to the borders because you're being oppressed, you're not respected as a citizen in this country, and those who are benefiting, let them go. That's my interpretation of what a post was about. And making such a post does
You're breaking up, JR. You're breaking up. I
racial
think your
hostility or
connection.
anything of the sort. And it's a sad situation when our 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 police and our legal agents
We're
are
really getting
using
some
these,
bad reception here from.
frivolous from speaking.
JR, we are really getting some bad reception from you there.
Are you hearing me, Norman?
No, we can't. The viewers can't hear you. Your connection is really, really bad
Let me
there.
go out and come back in.
We couldn't. Yeah, yeah. Go out and come back in. Malcolm. Malcolm Harripaul here. But Brenda Casey, one of our viewers here, she's saying a lawyer should contact the United Nations as a representative of all Guyanese who have suffered the consequences of their human rights violation. Malcolm, do you
You hear me,
believe?
Norman?
Malcolm, do you believe that your arrest and incarceration and being charged was politically motivated?
Oh yes, it certainly was. There's no if and but about it. No if. The police cleared out instructions from the top to do it. I could see it. The police were not doing it enthusiastically, except the senior person. So it's not a genuine case. I asked them who made the complaint, and up to they can't tell me who made the complaint. I asked them. I said, normally there's someone who makes a complaint or report. So who made the report? Who's the complainant? And they said they let me know when the time comes. They have never told me who the complainant was.
They never let you know who the complainant was. Well, it is very clear that people who are activists actually and Guyanese who stand up to speak openly and frankly about the wrongs in our society, that they're targeted by the government of the day. That is known, and there's so much happening, Malcolm. They try everything to hurt, you know, uh, activists and those who are speaking out against the wrongs that are happening in Guyana. You are the latest. You are the latest, and I strongly believe it is because you have a history of being in the PPP and that you are objective enough to call a spade a spade. And that you call for racial balance in the army, and as an Indo-Guyanese, it affects them when a voice that is, independent and objective would speak out. And therefore, I strongly believe that is why you are going through what you're going through. What JR said is that the shackles on your feet causing the marks and the bleeding and so on, that should be raised with the courts. Action should be taken against this government. This government today is doing so much wrong to Guyanese who are standing up and exposing the wrongs in society. And it does not stop at only persecution. It goes all the way to murder and other things. Attacking your family, targeting your family, hurting people, innocent people, And so we are faced with a dictatorial situation in Guyana today. Malcolm, I want to ask you, and you did make the point very seriously about Afro-Guyanese not going to the forefront to fight for PPP supporters. You are aware of what is happening in Guyana at the moment. Today, actually, the referendum, the Venezuela referendum is today. And many believe that an attack or an invasion or military action by Venezuela is imminent. What is your view?
Okay, well, historically, Venezuela has always used the Esquivel claim to rally support around the ruling party in Venezuela at certain times, like when they are very unpopular at election times or when they're undergoing bad economic times in Venezuela. And this was so in the 1970s, it was so in the 1980s, in the 1990s also. All right. What is new today, new though, is Maduro actually holding this referendum. Now, Maduro has to hold free and fair elections. It's an agreement he made with the Americans. And his regime is very unpopular. So to garner support, to garner Venezuelan support, he has held this referendum and Venezuelans around him. And most likely those who went out to vote, I understand the turnout was not as great as he would have expected, but I'm pretty
Yes.
sure they'll vote yes. The referendum will say yes, annex Esquivel, make it a state of Venezuela. So no one has done it before. No Venezuelan leader has done this before. So by holding a referendum is only for Maduro. But once the Venezuela say yes, make Esquivel a state, well then he has to do further. He has to take actions to try and take over Esquivel. The problem for him is that he can't really try to take over the entire Esquivel because he would not want problems with the Brazilians and the Brazilian border with Guyana. All right, and he would not want to intervene if he tries to take over the entire Esquivel or even half of the Esquivel. So I think what he will do is try and take over a small part like Region 1, at least make an incursion into Region 1. And even if and once he makes the incursion into Region 1, and he's there for a while, and if the Americans try to intervene, that will rally more Veno support for him, even if he's forced to retreat. The situation today also is that he would have had the support of Russia, of China, and Iran to back him with this because the objective of those three countries is to suck America into conflicts around the world to stress Latin America itself and so on. That's the objective of China, Russia, and Iran. So they're hoping that Americans will get involved. So I don't know how far Maduro will go. The American people don't want American troops fighting any war overseas right now. The American people do not want American troops involved in any conflict. But this is the thing with the PPP. They're telling the supporters, don't worry, the Americans are here. Suddenly, remember when the PP was in opposition, when the PP was Marxist, Leninist, and socialist, and all of that? America was a bad guy. America was the imperial Satan, right? And in fact, Jagan in those days wanted unity government with Barnum to oppose the American imperialism. So they keep bragging that Americans are here to save them. The Americans are here to fight for Guyana. But doesn't mean tell them they should be the ones fighting for Guyana, fighting for Esquivel, not depending on Americans to come here. No matter what you want to say about Forrest Burnham, he never depended on foreigners to come fight for us, right? He always depended on the Guyana Defense Force, the Guyana People's Militia, and the Guyana National Service, and the diplomatic corps to fight for us. Guyanese. Never once did Burnham ever depend on any foreign power to come to Guyana to fight for Guyana. Unlike what's going on with the PVP today.
One commentator here in the thread, Brenda Casey, saying that Jagdeo treats Guyana as a dictatorship where he rules it like Putin. JR, what are your thoughts on that? And Malcolm, what are your thoughts on that?
Now, when you have citizens' freedom of speech that are being suppressed, and you know, a person cannot voice their displeasure at the current administration, then that shows a dictatorship. In this day and age, if the PPP were a smart group of people, they would have started to allow people to speak their mind, treat the citizens of the country with respect, and it would have been an easier ride for them in the ruler's chair. You got in there by false means. You start to flex your muscle. Eventually, the bottom is going to fall out. How long will the international world stand back and watch the wrongdoings? You cannot hide the oppression as in back in the 70s, 60s, and 80s. The internet brings everything to light instantaneously. Eventually, we, when the people are looking at the opposition supporters as people who are causing discomfort for them, their discomfort will come from within their own party, from their so-called supporters. People, your conscience jumps up and bites you sometimes. And when they realize that, hey, oppressing people because they're not in agreement with wrongdoing is not the correct thing to do. And, the empire will fall from within. Jagdeo he has gone too far. There is nothing wrong with taking our resources and make sure that the citizens of the country benefit. If you treat the people with respect, regardless if you have ulterior motive, and you give them an opportunity to have a little bit of respect and relaxation, nobody's going to vote you out of office. It's common knowledge. I mean, it's easy. But when you're starting to, manhandle people, you're going to have a pushback. And they're using the law to run and say it's treason. It's not treason. You're creating an uncomfortable situation where people who do not agree with you cannot voice their concerns or their opinion. Our Constitution guarantees us free speech. We're not going out there with a weapon, brandishing a weapon, saying we're going to kill anybody if you don't allow me to speak. We're telling you that you're doing X and Y is wrong, and we need you to stop and show us respect and include us as a nation. If anybody is committing any treasonous act, it's the current administration. You have this Venezuela issue that flared up. The very first step that they should have made was to get to the opposition team, all the members, have an instant discussion right off the bat, and work as a team to push Venezuela back to where they belong. You wait until the last minute, then you're going to have dialogue, and you're not being forthright with your conversation and what is transpiring in the pipelines. So you're putting the nation at risk because an opposition team is part of the ruling government of the day. You can't have a government ruling without an opposition. And that is what they're trying to do. They're not having dialogues. They're not being forthright with the citizens and expect us to have the will to support what is going on. Don't ask to support when you're not clear on what is going on and how are we going to go about, supporting or guarding ourselves. The issue of us going and support. What happens when innocent folks who are loyalists to Guyana goes out to the borderline? And these refugees that we so-called brought in, who are now showing up as mercenaries and murderers, flank our boys and girls at the border. You have the advancing Venezuelan who's trying to covet what is Guyana's, what has been decided 124 years ago. And you have these militants and these murderers behind you who are in your country undocumented. We don't know how many. What do you think? It's a suicidal mission you're putting our boys and girls at. So they have set us up for failure from Jump Street. Maduro may not have to even come to the border to cross the river because the amount of people in this country might do the job for him because we have allowed illegal activities because some of us thought it's going to benefit us and keep us in government. This is where the citizens got to wake up and understand what is going on. And that is why things like what Malcolm is trying to educate the people is not to put yourself in jeopardy because we are having other underlying aspects that is going to hurt the country. And that is what I see. I don't see Malcolm's speeches as being treasonous. What I'm seeing is that the current administration is running scared of people voicing concern and making supporters get wise and stop going to the polls for them. And that is why they're oppressing people and suppressing people's voice. But it's not because people hate you is because of your bad attitude towards the citizens as a whole. It's caused people now to start to turn away from you. And eventually, by keep doing this, having this bad behavior and this disregard for citizens, the people will run themselves out of office for a very, very long time.
Malcolm?
Coming back to the point we made by JR about the so called Venezuelan refugees. In Venezuela, military service is compulsory. Military service is compulsory for males. By today, 16, 18, they have to serve in the National Guard or the Army. When I look at many of the young Brazilian males in Guyana today, you know these are army guys. You know that they've had army training, they've been in army and so on. You know that. And they're in Guyana by the thousands. They're in Guyana by the thousands. And, so what Geoffrey, right? Maduro might not have to send troops across the border because the troops are here already. They're amongst us, waiting for the war to go. That's a real situation that the PVP has created. And the PVP, I don't know if it's a prudent slip on their part. They had the police mark those vehicles in Spanish. Policia. We are an English-speaking country, right? Um, the vast majority of us are here. So why would you want to put go put police on the police vehicle instead of police? You understand? So just goes to show the state of mind. It's like they already give up. They have already given up their this, to my mind.
But there's this theory that the PPP did that because it was political currency for them. They wanted Venezuelans to come in, um, you know, in their numbers because they can set a situation where they can regularize them and naturalize them and give them citizenship and so on, for them to vote for the PPP. But they did not anticipate that Venezuela probably were sending in insurgents in the form of refugees in Guyana, and it has backfired. And the other aspect here is too that many feel that America will not intervene militarily because America has interests in Venezuela. Certain sanctions were lifted. Venezuela has more oil than Guyana, and there's a lot of interest and there's a lot of deals and so on going on between America and Venezuela currently, including I understand the oil giant that owns the oil in Guyana. Is it Chevron or something like that?
Chevron
Chevron.
is
Chevron.
controlling
Chevron is
Venezuela
controlling Venezuela's oil, and they're
and Exxon
controlling
here.
and Exxon here. So it's a situation where they would not sacrifice the deals or compromise the deals they have with Venezuela, which is apparently much more lucrative, I understand. And the Biden administration will not take any action militarily if Venezuela decides to cross our borders tomorrow. And so it's very complex. It's a very complex situation, and many in the international community believes that that there will be military action from Venezuela into Guyana, and so we hope that that doesn't happen. Malcolm, I want to ask you this question because you're the latest political activist to be targeted by the PPP wrongfully. You are Indo-Guyanese, and when you speak, it shows the world that we are not completely, you know, in a struggle across the lines of race because we have Indo-Guyanese speaking out against the wrongs that are being perpetrated by the PPP. And so you are in a peculiar situation where Bara Jagdeo especially would be offended and insulted and hurt that an Indo-Guyanese is calling his regime out. If you were to say to our viewers around the world, and so many people have tuned in tonight, so many people, so many comments on YouTube and Facebook, if you were to sum Bara Jagdeo up in a few minutes, how would you sum him up? And do you believe that it is directive and it is his control of the PPP that is causing all of this sort of oppression and dictatorial tendencies?
Well, to be honest, I don't think Jagdar had anything to do with me being charged, arrested and charged, and placed in foot cuffs and thing. I don't think he had anything to do with it. It might have come from other quarters. It might not have even been President Ali. It might have started NCPP and elements from another organization. People don't like people don't want to say certain things again, but I think what really offended some people is because in my comment I included the word masjid. I included the word masjid, and certain people took offense to that. And then
Okay.
remember, I have taken a in the war with Israel and the criminals Hamas. I have stood with Israel, and then the Freddie Kissoon show when he said he could not be talk about the Hamas beheading babies, that is not true. I stood my ground and I said, yes, Hamas beheaded babies, and talk with about that. And I understand certain people in Ghana didn't like what to say. And Freddie was instructed later on to throw me off the program, no matter what I said after that. All right.
Wow.
So I think it might be coming from those folks there. All right. Those folks get a chance to get at me. Yes.
So they have the power to instruct the police to arrest you, because what I understand is that any action such as that,
Yes.
it has to be run by Jagdeo. I understand that Jagdeo micromanages, and that anything
Well, he was
that
not.
has.
Okay, he was.
Go ahead, Malcolm.
Jagdi was not in the country, neither orphan. He was not in the country. They were not in the country. You know, unless it's saying that although they were in Dubai and they were following some like me. So let me say something like this. Since President Granger demitted office, gave up power, I have tried to live a very quiet life where I'm living. At my age, I don't leave my yard unnecessarily. I only leave if I have to go pay bills or pick up groceries. I do go into dressly. I try to be home by 6. I do things on Facebook and so on, but I have not been active out there in Georgia amongst people. I don't go out and address crowds. I don't go about the country addressing people. So I should not be seen as a threat to anyone in Guyana. I'm just an old man home here, fuming on Facebook. And certainly I don't think Jagdeo nor Orphan would be bothered by what I had to say on San. If they're in Dubai, why would they be in Dubai at such an important event? Bother to monitor or listen to what people at Mark Maripa wrote on Facebook. So I'm thinking that it's people who are in Guyana, people who are in
But
Georgetown.
but who are
So
those
I'll
people
tell you
that got the
further,
power? Who are those people that got
that
that power
tourism
to
model went into
instruct the
Georgia.
police to arrest you and charge you for racial hostilities? Who got that power? Who you're talking about outside of the
There
leaders in
are
the.
people here who are financiers of the PVP.
Okay.
Hello. There are people in Guyana who are
Yep.
financiers of the PVP, the supporters of the president. They're very powerful people. Nobody wants to talk out against them. All right? That's the problem in Guyana here.
JR?
Yes.
Norman,
So I'm telling you, that morning when I walk around
Hold
town,
on, Malcolm, go ahead.
I was-
Go ahead, Malcolm.
yes,
no,
that
what I was
Thursday
trying to say,
morning
right?
as I was walking around town, I normally take
Go ahead, Malcolm, go ahead.
Hello.
Malcolm, we're listening to you. Go ahead. We'll hear you first and then we'll have JR.
Yeah, as I was walking around Georgetown that Thursday morning. Yeah, as I was walking around Georgetown the Thursday morning, I was taking photos, which I later put on Facebook when I got home. That's something I would normally do. I say my walk route for the day. I did 3 miles, I did 4 miles or so. So along Camp Street, there was this big SUV, and I saw it slow, and then I sensed people look at me. I look, and I saw certain folks in it. And like they were surprised to see me in Georgetown. They probably thought I was out of the country or something, right? And those are very powerful people in the country. And I got home, and minutes after, the police came and arrested me. And I could tell that certain senior people in the government did not know that the police had arrested me. I'm not going to call names. They did not know that the police had arrested me and that I was going to be charged.
JR?
Look, when you look at what's going on here, Malcolm and Norman and our guests, it is an important thing now for the opposition team and any party, small party that is not in tune with what is going on here and the selective and oppressive behavior and selective attacks. We have to start to engage the international organization. The world is in its 21st century. We're not, you know, running behind with with the Pony Express anymore. You cannot have people being, put into this distressful state because they're voicing their concern about issues that are affecting the lives of not one or two people, but most of our Guyanese people. We have now emerged as an oil producing nation where Guyana is now recognized worldwide. Why are we not having human rights at the top of the discussion where it must be respected, we must not be abused? You have all these ambassadors, we have CARICOM here and all these things. And, mind you, CARICOM is a letdown right now because we are being the initiator in forming CARICOM. Where are we as a unit to start to talk to this head of state? Listen, get your act together. Our creditors that we collect all these monies, hundreds and millions of dollars from, why aren't they having one of the criteria where you're coming to us for monies for all these projects, but you have an atrocious human rights record? If you cannot remedy that, you will not be able to finance any project to these organizations. And fourth issue, why is it that, you know, our brutality that we are facing is not of importance in the international stage? And our opposition team has to be on the ball every single day, every issue. We should have a selective few, a team that is on the move internationally to, to be engaged and let people know of relevant importance how hard it is for us to speak out, living in discomfort, living with shortage of stuff, living with no opportunities to improve our financial state, not given opportunities because of our ethnicity. These are things that should be hammered daily, not on a one here and then 6 months later. This time waits for no man, and when we are ready to receive this country or given an opportunity to rule this country, how are we going to pay back the debts? How are we going to improve the broken morals, the broken spirits of the people, not only African, but East Indian and Amerindians and other races who do not subscribe to the PPP? When you have a broken spirit, you don't have the drive to be fruitful, to be progressive. You have already lost everything mentally. How can you perform? And we are allowing these things because the PPP is just a small unit. that are doing these things. Many of the supporters are now turning away from the PPP because they're not up to what they're doing, and it's unfortunate. When you see an East Indian person who has the integrity to stand up and say, "Listen, I do not appreciate the way this organization is operating," and speaks out and get himself hauled to lockups for unnecessary things, which is there is no evidence for Malcolm to be arrested. And you're not seeing religious organizations coming out and speaking out of this. Malcolm, for the time I have known Malcolm as a public person, I haven't seen Malcolm issued any threats or behave ridiculous in public. So here's a grown person who have paid his dues, especially on the public service and in the military, and you're treating him with this utmost disrespect. What are you telling the common person who didn't finish high school? If they can do that to a former army officer, what do you think they'll do to me, a guy who didn't, who dropped out of school at 13? So we are put driving this fear in our citizens that they would not speak, or they will see things and they will not come to the law or bring it out there because of fear of being retaliated against. So these are the things that we need to, get away from. The citizens of this country who are facing the hardship, regardless of which party you support, they need to stop looking at people with straight hair and curly hair and start to look at people who have the same needs and wants and combine their efforts to get rid of anybody who does not want us to live in unity and harmony. We are a nation who cannot live without each other. It's a known fact. The blacks and the Indians have to be together. And when you love and the appreciation when you're in the fields, you would never expect Guyana is so divided and so hate driven. And these are the things that we need to start a push internationally. We have to have teams to travel abroad and enlighten respective international human rights bodies to come and pressure this administration to stop this nonsense. You can't be hauling people off because they're telling you you're doing the wrong things. That's their goddamn democratic right. And eventually, they are going to push the wrong buttons on some set of people, and then all hell breaks loose. What happens now if people decide to get angry with the Venezuelan issue at one side, and we are blindsided with something unnecessary or uncalled for on this side? What are they going to do? Just let Guyanese innocent lives get hurt? It's time for this government to stop being this way and start to respect our citizens. What is so wrong in giving everybody an equal opportunity to have a proper life? It is mandated, and you don't even need a written record to give people of a community an opportunity to have a life. As long as you have people with decent morals, they're give them an opportunity. If you're a criminal, fine, put you away. So what we are seeing with this PPP stuff and suppressing people's voice, it only tells the nation who are honest thinkers that the PPP are scared of people who will spread what they're doing. And that is the reason why they're trying to shut people down, because of fear of losing power.
And I
And
think that
when you
I honestly think, JR, we're running out of time. Sorry for cutting you there. But I honestly think that the PPP feels emboldened to behave in that manner as a dictatorship because we do not have a strong and powerful opposition. The opposition today is basically the people like yourself, Malcolm, and others who are not in the echelons of the opposition, enjoying that cushy life. It is the ordinary man and woman in the street, people who are not in the top tier of the opposition, that are carrying that struggle and that are facing the consequences today. We are running out of time. We've passed the hour mark. What I will do is to have Malcolm give his closing remarks, and then we will have co-host J.R. Crawford give his closing remarks. But before that, I really want to ask both of you, and I really want you to be very, very brief before we go into the closing remarks. I want to ask this question, and to both of you, do you think that Mr. Jagdeo is the problem in Guyana in relation to how the government is run and the manifestation of his dictatorial attitude, actions, and tendencies? Briefly, and then we get the closing remarks. Malcolm, go ahead.
Well, well, I guess Mr. Jagdeo being the de facto president, the real president of Guyana, he's a man who runs things in the PPP and in the government. I guess you have to cast some blame on him. But like I said, there are other actors in Guyana also who are to blame for the situation we are in today. And then also, generally, Guyanese are afraid to speak out. They know what's going on, but they're afraid to speak out. And I don't know when Guyanese have become so timid that they don't want to speak out and so on. And I mean, you spoke about weak opposition, but I want to take the opportunity to thank Mr. Harvey Norton, the opposition leader, who, upon hearing that I was arrested, organized for me to have a lawyer, and who, upon hearing that I was granted bail and no one to bail me, sent me to bail me. I want to thank you very much and to thank those folks who came out at the court that Friday afternoon to support me.
JR, uh, your answer.
Norman, I well, in response to your question, I would not lay the blame of this behavior squarely at the feet of Barjagyan. I would lay the blame on the private sector because Bharat and a lot of politicians owe their rise in politics to the private sector. And when you don't come from a powerful financial backing and you go and you start to get help from outsiders to get where you intend to be, you owe them a lot. And a lot of things are happening on the street unbeknownst to people that are elected in high offices. So my thing is 100% no. Partially, yes, but more so the private sector. Because if you listen tonight, Malcolm said it before you asked the question. He was walking along Camp Street and he saw a big SUV, which is private. And after that, he got home and police are there. That is exactly what I'm saying. Private sector calls the shot. The politicians have to dance to the tune because of taking financial backings to improve their political status. You're held prisoner for life.
J.R. Crawford there. I think what Malcolm was trying to say to us that these organizations, you remember Malcolm mentioned masjids and other places. And
I know exactly what Malcolm is saying.
and so those are very powerful people too, who, that have influence. And he is absolutely correct that it may not directly be the Bar Jagdeo would have called from the Middle East to say lock Malcolm up, because some of these people got the leverage, and a lot of those people in political organizations in Guyana that are able to brainwash, Malcolm's word, able to brainwash their supporters. They have an impact, and of course, the police, though many of them they are doing a good job, and we get these reports, and we have to give respect to the ordinary policeman that is sent to arrest people and know that this is politically motivated arrest, that they treat those persons with dignity and respect. And I want to say kudos to those police. They are true Guyanese. But of course, they have a job to do. And if the commissioner is in the pockets and being handled by the regime, on which we know he is being handled by the regime and controlled by the regime. The police will have to carry out the orders, but we recognize, and I want to say it on this program, we recognize that even though they have to carry out those orders, they treat those who are arrested in a decent and humane way. And that is the Guyanese spirit. I got to do a job. But the criminal that shot somebody, when I go for him, I'm going with full force. But of someone that you arrest for his political views, I am not going to treat him badly. And so I recognize the Guyana police force for that. They're corrupt people in the echelons of the police force. And there are many, a few that are controlled by the PPP in positions. But the police force itself largely is a good institution, and people are doing their work, and I want to recognize those policemen that are doing their job properly. Malcolm, your closing remarks. JR, your closing remarks, and we'll call it an evening.
Well, in closing, I'm not going to summarize what I said. I just want to call on the Guyana Bar Association and on the religious leaders in Guyana and the medical practitioners in Guyana to go visit the lockups at Brick Dam. Go visit the lockups at Brick Dam and let them say what animal, what animal will they allow to into the lockups of Brick Dam. I want to say further that the state of the lockups of Brick Dam is a reflection of Guyana. It is a reflection of Guyana. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. JR Crawford, your closing remarks, and we call it an evening.
What Malcolm was saying, I feel is right. And back under the Granger administration, there were improvements that prisoners, people who are detained, not prisoners, should be treated humanely and should be in clean environment to avoid, having disease and all these things. When you have a country that's of has 50 something percent in economic growth and all this great stuff, if you can have human rights and health, how are you going to attract investors? Now, look at today with this ring of support or whatever it is. The 10-day workers were threatened if they do not join the bus to go to Georgetown, they will be out of a job. And I'm sure that that order did not come from the installed president or the prime minister. What I'm trying to fall back on, Norman, is that there are other players who are calling the shot and threatening people. Now here you have these minions. People are already out of work or under economic strain, and they're threatened that if they don't go to Georgetown today on a Sunday, many of them, can't get to the churches or the mandate or whatever. They're going to lose their employment, that little $40,000. So we're using any oppressive method possible to keep the citizens in check because the earnings that they have is just enough for them to go back to work on Monday. Whatever you earn up until Friday, it only carries you into Monday. So you're dependent and the cycle goes on and on. But the opposition needs to engage international human rights about, yes, the lockups and also the inability for citizens to speak out on issues that are affecting us as a nation. We must not be in fear of saying, or voicing our displeasure on the behavior of any elected government, even if it was the coalition government. Call it. And I could vouch for it. When the coalition was in office in 2019 and they were selling the sugar estate lands, I violently object for them to sell these lands. And my thing was turn them into cash crop lands and re-employ the sugar workers that are no longer employed. Because when you sell these lands to foreign people, you have a one-off, sometimes not even a profit. So I criticized my own party that I voted for in thing. So why can I not criticize the PPP who is not my party? So the PPP can, they will push people around. Eventually it will stop because in the modern age of technology, people are going to be rallied together by different circles. We need to be respected. If you don't want people to have negative publicity on your party or your political leadership, respect the people, provide the goods and services, and stop oppressing people. How would you know where you're lacking in service if someone don't come out and speak about it? Because many of us have subordinates who are lying to us that it's all good and well in Region 2, when in reality nothing is flowing.
Is
Because
exactly.
we can't be at every place at the same time. So the people need to stop this nonsense about hauling people into lockups
But
because they're speaking in my
JR, the PvP supporters are out in full force here on the page today. Nirvana Bagwandin just said, we are three useless, corrupt, and racist lunatics on this program.
listen to me. Listen to me. If I were
They're
to
out in
live
full
my
force.
life, if I were to live my life
Yeah.
listening to jackasses and people who don't have a brain to be independent thinkers, and I'll be a dead man since I was 18 years old. When you have jackasses like those people talking, they don't even know who they're talking about. You know, I have many run-ins with people who are spewing nonsense. They don't even know who they're dealing with. You see, these are people who they may have a degree, but they're not intelligent. They might be educated, but they're not intelligent, and they can't find the
But
difference in between the two.
that's what Malcolm said that caused him to be locked up. Malcolm
Right.
said the
You see,
man
people
is
don't
Yeah.
with a
understand.
PhD of
Exactly.
ignorance.
Exactly.
And
Right.
so, gentlemen,
Yes.
we are running out of time. We will have to come back and
And
continue this
tell that
conversation.
Nirvana character,
Yeah,
Norman.
but so many PvP
No,
people
I
are
want to make
cussing.
a statement.
Mm,
I want to make a statement. You see how ignorant these people are? They come and search for you, an individual, to listen to what you got to say. Ask that idiot Nirvana if she has ever seen me on a PPP program listening to any goddamn crap. I don't waste my time on something that don't interest me. But you
well,
see, this is the
they're
problem when
ordered.
you have a salt
They
mentality.
are ordered to come on these programs to be the
I
harsh
don't
and
care. They could do
provocateurs.
whatever they want.
You understand? Malcolm is on the
They can't tell me
program,
shit.
so they will come. They will be sent because
Yeah,
Malcolm is the
but
man of
being
the
ignorant
moment.
is no excuse. Malcolm has the right as a citizen. He has also been in the military to voice his displeasure of something that is bothering the country.
Precisely. Yes. Yes.
That is his democratic right. How are you going to call people names for exercising their democratic right? If the PPP wants to go out there and dance on the road all day long, I can't tell them no because that's their choice. As long as I don't get myself caught up in dancing. And that's what these people don't understand. They want to force you to accept their behavior. You don't force them to accept the PNC or any other small party behavior. That's the problem where they can understand. They get mad with because you don't support their rhetoric. You don't force them to come on your show or come or believe in your party. They can't understand to go their way in peace. That is the problem. Because I don't know if the breed in Guyanese has watered down where the general Guyanese is lacking the ability to differentiate being a slave-minded person or an or independent thinker. I don't know what is happening to us.
Well,
But all I can see, the stature of Guyanese have shrunk.
Malcolm said it, and as we close, Andrea D just said that Malcolm has served this country. He has served this country, and that it made
Yes,
me feel
and he
so
must be
good.
respected.
So many comments and say, but I want to say this before I go. Once you mention the masjids and the mandirs, you can be locked up, and so we see where this is going in a dictatorship. But Malcolm is the latest example of a Guyanese, Indo Guyanese, but a Guyanese who is objective enough to stand up and speak out and to face the consequences and still courageous enough to come on a program such as this that may cause the PPP to lock him up again tomorrow when he reports to
For
them,
what?
to the police
For what?
station, because
For what?
you know how wicked they are, and you know.
You know, let me interject a little, Norman. You know this nonsense about locking up you foolishly was going to cost the PPP a very, very long time out of government. Because remember, if you can't have footprints for the lot that you're carrying, it's a long, long sentence. Just remember, we are at the age where, at a push of a button, footprints will be examined. You know what I'm talking about. So they better be careful.
They have to be careful. Malcolm, Harripaul here on the program, political activist. Of course, Malcolm was locked up and treated in an inhumane way for voicing his opinion politically that may have caused the ire of the PPP government. He stands courageous today. He continues his sojourn, and I don't believe, as many of you out there will not believe, that whatever they do to him can deter him from standing up as a Guyanese and fighting the good fight as he has fought over the decades. Malcolm Harripaul, thank you for coming on this program. Co-host of Voice of the Diaspora, J.R. Crawford, of course. So many people have interacted here to say, yes, J.R., yes, J.R. One of the most brilliant co-hosts that I can ever have. Thank you, gentlemen. We have run out of time. Thank you for being here on Voice of the Diaspora. Malcolm Harripaul and J.R. Crawford. We go back to the struggle.
We are a peaceful people, struggling we struggle, and we don't look for trouble, just ask around. But when outside faces from foreign places talk about taking over, we ain't backing down. No, we ain't giving up no mountain, and we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belong to we. Not the one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one chorus, not a blade of grass. This land is our land now, we're gonna make it somehow. We will bend like a bow, but never break. Our fathers came here, and they lived and died here, and we are moving from here, make no mistake. No, we ain't giving up no mountain, and we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belong to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one chorus, not a blade of grass. We love the open country of the Rupanuni and the Essex Cribble, daytime or night. Though we criticize it, this is our home, we love it, and we mean to keep it. We have that right. No, we ain't giving up no mountain, and we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belong to we. Not one